Welcome to Podcast This Escape, the podcast where we talk about the escape room we escaped from in the previous episode of this podcast, but we didn't escape, we solved a murder! we did it.
J'accused the hell out of them.
We accused everybody. Thank you, Lexi, so much for putting that room together. It was great.
You're welcome, and that was one incredible denouement as well.
Yeah, so sorry.
You get a minor insight into how we do things and solve this murder, and why we typically just do them on our own so that we can very comfortably edit and take 80 takes with everything, because it takes some time. I had a great time with this.
I really
thought it
enjoyed
was a solid combination and a nice mix of things that made it like a good solid hour and a bit of content.
It honestly, because, you're never sure. It's really hard to do this where it doesn't feel just like an escape room or just like a murder mystery. Like, this, I think, did straddle the line really well. Like, we were doing a lot of things that felt mechanically like an escape room, but fundamentally the final puzzle was, you probably have enough evidence to solve a murder.
Yeah.
What was it? Who was it? And that was lovely.
And I felt good about that. I don't know, it was structured well. It was clear what was going with what and where I should filter my information in my mystery brain or my puzzle brain. And by the end, more so than in a lot of our Solve This murders, I felt comfortable going into a denouement and not like I don't know, do I have enough? Maybe, I don't know, I guess I'll flounder my way a little bit through this.
And that's sort of the beauty of it being like escape room format, is it still had it was like the mystery solving was just the final puzzle. But it still had that puzzle structure that made you very sure of things. It was really fun. Now, putting this together, you said you play tested this a fair amount. You sort of you had some changes to it. What does it look like? How does this version that we play compare to previous times you've run it?
So the very first session that I ran of this, it was designed for a over the lockdown, I'd started doing a lot of quizzes and things like that at work and for friends and so on. I think a lot of people did that, but I really always enjoyed the designing different kind of tailoring quizzes to the people, or making activities involved in it. And so it's not just a straight up quiz, And it was around that time that I'd discovered Escape This Podcast and Solve This Murder, and I was like, oh, this is incredible. And that was kind of the energy I needed to be like, oh, I really want to do something fun. So I made this as a Christmas event. So it was originally Christmas 21, I think.
Sure.
And that I designed this. So originally the dead body was dressed as a Santa.
Sure. Okay.
Was it still on a train or was it a sleigh?
Oh, yes. The train was still there. The bones of it are all the same. It's mostly just a skin swap.
Sure.
But interestingly, because I designed that for a larger group at the time, so I was running it for 10, 12 people, I actually had a much narrower scope on the room.
Okay.
So there were only 3 passengers instead of 4.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole Acme Book of Codes and the Tobacco Leaf was a late edition.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that actually only came kind of into play this week, because I did a playtest with a friend and I found that there wasn't enough of a clear drive or motive or identity, basically, of the killer.
Oh, Tobacco Leaf Killer was definitely an identity.
Exactly, and so the
How
Acme Book
funny!
of
I
Codes
wouldn't
was
have
an
guessed
amazing
that.
find.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
dang.
was beautiful.
How on earth did you come across that?
Google is my friend in so many ways.
Did you just Google historical codes?
So yeah, initially, I do remember this story that I'd heard a while back of, I think in the 1920s there was this, I think a company that was trading on the stock market and had sent a telegram via code using 5 letters, or a series of different codes. There are so many weird codes, and I can share more with you later if you are interested. But essentially, there was apparently an issue where one of the Telegram people at the company sending it made a mistake by 1 letter, and the company lost a load of money in the trade market.
Ah, lovely.
They accidentally ordered uranium.
Yeah, something like that. And so that was a story that I'd heard of recently. I was thinking, oh, this is a period thing. I want to make it more thematic. Let's go all Telegram codes.
That's
It was great.
wild.
It looked lovely, and it was fun to go through an actual page of the old book. It was nice to clearly have that's what I want. It worked really well.
Mm-hmm. This may be the actual link to the archive.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, nice.
Is there if you want to take a look. because it's all
Yeah.
searchable. Like the issue, I was initially considering just having that as a searchable thing that I gave you.
Oh yeah,
Or-
that's
Oh,
maybe too
boy.
much
If you
on
type in-
936 pages of codes.
Exactly. And if you try searching tobacco, for example, it only like searches on the current pages that you're on.
Oh,
Oh
God.
yeah, that's tough.
And so I was just thinking, no, like I need to narrow the scope down a little bit.
That's wild.
Yeah, so it was very nice. So what, before you added this in, it was just sort of like there was a killer. Did you still have the photo as the incriminating stuff? Okay,
Yeah,
lovely.
so the whole body swap thing and like the motive for the murder was always the same. It was a cover up of a different murder. That was always kind of the initial hook of the mystery. But yeah, so some of the issues that I kept on running into were either like didn't feel there was enough of an identity of the killer, and also the idea of there not being like a very clear, definitive end to the room. Because often in an escape room, for example, if you're putting it more mechanically, you have a very clear end to the room, which is you get out the door. Whereas with this, that's not really a thing. So that's where the time limit of getting before you get to the station, you have a deadline, and then the conductor coming through the door at the end for the denouement was also a much later addition.
Yeah, and it's nice to be able to basically just call it because you know when they have the information they need. You know when they've found all the clues as the gate person running it. So it's easy for you to just be like, bang, the person comes in, you're out of time, you have to give the answer now. And then you could let them have as much time as they want to come up with it, but you can call it for them, which is nice.
For Solve This Murder, this is one of those things that usually gets cut as we saying, yeah, I think I've got enough to do something. And then whoever the writer was can go, yep, I believe you have enough for that. So, okay, we're just going to go into this. All right, so I'm going to do an intro now. The detective walks into the room and all of the witnesses have been gathered and you are allowed to talk now.
Yeah, it's
And
nice
so, yeah, we have to
kind
do a little bit of murmuring behind the scenes
when
to
you hit the point.
confirm.
I don't know if you actually picked up on the little wink to Solve This Murder.
Oh,
Wait.
I don't.
What?
The police officer was Johnny Cools.
It was Johnny Cools.
Yeah.
I knew that sounded familiar.
Yeah, it was Johnny Cools. Everybody loves Johnny Cools. Even when we forget that he exists.
Oh, man.
When did Johnny Cools get introduced?
Hairdresser?
That was in your podcast, you mean?
Yeah,
When did we
hairdresser.
use Johnny
Remember.
Cools? I think it was hairdresser. He
Yeah.
popped up. You needed a police officer.
That sounds right.
And so we had one. His name was Johnny Cools.
Yeah. Oh.
But
yeah.
he was actually the fourth passenger that I ended up adding in later to the room as well.
Oh, gotcha.
Because I wanted a policeman who would like have notes about the other passengers.
Yeah,
So it made sense
love
that a detective would be someone who would maybe keep an eye on their surroundings, make notes, and so on.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, fantastic.
I liked all of your naming of things and people and all of that. There were lots of fun things.
But yeah, no, it's very nice. Was there anything like Danny? I feel like you did very well.
Oh, really? Oh, thank
getting all
you.
the connections, and I'm glad. Oh, okay. Your idea to search the shoes. Was there anything to hint at that, or were you just going to be like, I'm just going to wait till someone decides to search someone's shoes? Because that feels so specific.
It felt. I'm surprised I didn't do it earlier. Same with testing the beer taps. I was planning on messing with them a little bit earlier, but I didn't want to make a mess. I didn't want to make a mess.
Yeah, true.
I think that's probably like that's something that I always kind of like feel is a little bit of an issue with this kind of. That's the kind of the problem I kept on running into when I was designing it and trying to balance the amount of things that there are in the room. Initially, there's kind of an information overload, which I think is a bit of an issue still. And then, like, it's only like once you're halfway through, everything kind of starts clicking together, and it's like, oh, now I know where I am. Now I know who's who. And yeah,
I don't know. That's
probably
necessarily
There were
something to avoid. Like that's kind of like how these investigations
It
go.
depends on the room. That said, I will feel just like little things like after looking at the chairs, then looking at the coats and already just being able to make some tiny connections there. That was a good sort of opening as an, yep, okay, I can make little dabs of progress.
But back to my original question.
Yeah, the shoes.
Did you just expect us to search the shoes?
It actually was a thing that I was thinking most people would probably do if they examined the body closer. I think there was going to be another way for you to, like, there were other ways of you kind of, like, that would maybe point towards that person being Hunter, the dead body. And then, like, if you kind of go back to check it, you can be like, oh, actually. And then if you hadn't already found it, then I'd mention it then and be like,
I mean, it is true that right away you did the stab wound hunting, and then we figured this uniform may have been put on him later. So it would have made sense to
Just check stuff that maybe was
investigate
not changed.
everything closer. Yeah, that's true. But I don't know, and I think a part of it was honestly how I drew the body. Look at those shoes.
Yeah, those are pretty enticing shoes.
They're just much too big for his feet.
Yeah, you're doing big
for this
gumboots.
person's feet.
Something you did as well, which was interesting, was you started the room the opposite way that I actually thought. Like a lot of people, I thought would always normally gravitate towards the seats and the tables and so on, and start making connections, as you mentioned there. And so it was very interesting, kind of seeing it play out the opposite way and still kind of working.
Oh,
yeah,
it definitely works.
That's always the way. Like, you never know when someone plays the room what they're going to look at.
And it can be really hard when I've had this in the escape rooms that I've done sometimes, where obviously I know the room will work no matter what they choose to look at first, but the level of satisfaction might change.
Yeah, it won't feel the same. They're not going to go like this and then this. Oh my God, that combines the two things together. They might be like, this combines two things I don't know anything about. And then find them, be like, wait, are those the ones? Should I go back and try those? Like,
yeah, it's a tough one to find out. I didn't notice anything in this that would make me go, oh, if only I'd looked at that earlier, in that sort of way. I felt pretty satisfied with how things went.
There's one that I think if we'd done earlier wouldn't have been quite as fun for us, is if we'd immediately gone to those beer taps, gone, boom, iron key, yep, all right, let's go to the locker.
That's true. I'm glad that we waited a bit on that.
It was nice
resisted
for us
our instincts
to wait for a more thorough search.
That's true.
And I think also it was, a big part of it was like, I know how Danny writes a room by now. Right, so I know the sort of the manner in which I'm expected to do stuff.
I'm so predictable.
So when we have not predictable, it's like I know that if that you're generally now from this point you did used to, but now you're much less likely to have one thing of like I look at this and then I look harder at this, and so. But a lot of people do, right? Because it's a very reasonable thing. It's like
escape
asking
rooms
for
have searching.
methods of searching, right? It's very classic escape room thing. And you never know when you have a new game master their opinion on that. So it was like we did a cursory search, then we tried out just to check, is there anything under the tables? And because there was new information, it was like, oh, now I have to revisit everything.
That did then
let's
really
go back,
push me
let's
to do
look
the
closer
shoes.
at this, let's dig into the ice bucket, let's do this, that, and the other. Because now I was like, it's like, I know what Lexi wants, and they want me to look into this, and they want me to do this, and like, and so it changes. Then we go back and re-examine and relook and look at the shoes.
Even
and look at the
so,
ice,
like I
etc.
wasn't convinced that there would be something in the shoes by searching for that, but I do have to tell you, I was really happy that there was. Like it made me so happy that was a successful hunt.
I'm gonna note to myself, I should put things in my shoes.
The reason that I didn't even think that you wouldn't think to look in there, I think it was in the beach murder. Oh
yeah.
Yeah, people at Australian beaches put things in shoes.
That is true.
Did I tell my story about putting money in my shoes then
Yeah,
too?
probably. You're a money shoe freak.
There was also one interesting thing, which was obviously you solved the cipher without needing a clue for it.
Yeah.
And that was something that when it came to putting people in their seats, saying, oh, so, Johnny's in this seat, Glenn's in this seat, and so on. That kind of makes a lot of sense from a narrative perspective, but it didn't have much game purpose. And so
I see.
the way that I ended up placing the +2 code into the room was with the seat numbers and the first letters of people's names.
What?
So they actually go, if you look at them, they go GHIJ 5678.
Oh.
What?
That was a very niche one, and I wasn't certain if people would come up, and you figured out the cipher without it.
Yeah, that's true. That's harder than the cipher.
Niche. Yeah, that's why I was kind of like when you discovered the cipher, I was like, honestly, yeah, let's probably just roll with it.
Oh man. I did not draw my chairs and my notes and things in a way that was conducive to that.
Do you know what's the problem for me is I basically did people's surnames instead. I was like, there's Rossi, there's Stack or Stock, there's Coulson. And so I didn't have the same letters for because I wasn't looking at first names.
Oh, man. Yeah, I just put names in random places on the page, nowhere near the chairs.
Yeah, I think if that was something that would end up getting stuck on, I would probably be like, okay, so at this point we have, it'd probably be a good idea to go over where people were sat, who was where. So in seat 5, you have Glenn, and kind of invite them to complete from there.
And this is good. Like when people are making these rooms or running these rooms, like that's the kind of stuff where if you feel like you need to give hints, sometimes you don't need to like hint. You just need to, one of the best ways to do it is if you restate the information in a way that makes it more catchable. Right, so you don't say, I'm going to tell you who's in which seat. You say, okay, so who do you have in each seat? Like, where do you have Glenn? Where do you have, and you use those names.
This
and you can try
is the
and
biggest
help.
advantage of the format that we have is that none of this is intended to be just, all right, I am just like a computer. I will give you the information that is listed on my notes and not a word, not a tone more. And then it's all on you now. This is meant to be game master inclusive. You're part of it.
So there's a good art to that.
Yeah, you can shift and change things as they need to be. And yeah, that sounds like that's how it would have gone.
And it's
I
nice
like a good blind cipher.
Yeah, it's fun. We got into them. I think it was the Nancy Drew games that got us into them because they
quite possibly.
There's a lot of them where they're just like, here's the note.
I do have to tell you, I've definitely been into just like little code books and things for a while.
Like, you know what it is? It's because we're the Artemis Fowl generation.
A little bit.
We had to solve the codes at the bottoms of every page.
I did.
Yeah.
All on my own. Didn't use the internet to cheat.
That's impressive.
It was fun. I just saw the writing at the bottom of it, and there's some code, and it said, think fairy, think again. And I went, hey, this ciphery bit looks like it's 4 words with 2 of them repeated. And I used that, and I went through the entire book with just the letters from those words, and then found all the others, because notice there's no E in there. And things like that. So a lot of common letters were missing. And so I had to go through piece by piece and fill them in. And yeah, I've always enjoyed stuff like that. Apparently, no matter how tedious.
Yeah, true. If you're younger than us, if you're a Gravity Falls fan, you did the same thing.
Sure.
There you go. Probably a lot younger. For Gravity Falls to be the same age for you as...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not included in this younger demographic, by the way. I just want to make that clear.
No, because you're an adult.
I am not young.
Well,
actually, that's this is a lie. According to every Australian demographic survey, 18 to 34 is the cutoff for young Australians.
Oh, see, we're young, tiny children we are.
I still have 1 year and 5 days before I'm 2 years and 5 days before I am not a young Australian.
Yeah, see, great.
Easy.
So, I really liked it. I think we've kind of talked about the way it came together. Is there anything else interesting about this room that you wanted to mention in this
what
episode?
else do you want to brag
fun
about?
Stuff we haven't noticed or we haven't talked about?
I'm not usually like the bragging person. I kind of want to overly fixate on things that I think are bad and that could be better. But I still feel like there's just so much of an information dump at the beginning that I think that's probably still a bit of an issue. And I think, like, obviously, the other big problem, which I think that you kind of navigated incredibly well, was that sometimes clues can be just for one thing or the other. They can be for the narrative or they can be for a puzzle. And sometimes it's difficult to know which ones are which. And so, yeah, if anyone at home wants to do something similar, I think just try and emphasize or have things have multiple uses potentially, I think can be
maybe. I thought that this felt very intuitive in that way. I thought it was
I never
nicely
really
done.
kind of felt like I was like, oh, what is this? Because it's like, it's kind of, I don't even know if I separated them too much. It was like, I just have a series of questions. One of my questions is, what's the code for this thing? And my other question is, what's up with the black pants? And when I get an answer to either of those, I'm kind of just as happy.
Yeah, it's interesting. And some questions feel more murdery, and some questions feel more escape roomy.
Weirdly, this is one of those great examples of where more codes is better, right? In terms of like, so often people in escape rooms like, oh, it's just a series of codes and I wanted something different. But in this one, it was really nice
that clarity of purpose.
Like, it was like, if it's going to tie to a code, it's a puzzle. If it's going to get me a 4-digit, 5-digit, or like a word, because those inputs were really clear, it was very easy to be like, well, this is for codes, and then this is for murder. And there weren't any other puzzles that were too, like...
line blurry.
Yeah, like, because people often want that, right? Because they know we're just in puzzle mode. So they want the puzzles to start to feel different and have inputs that are about, like, how you would order things in a room or, finishing off a flower arrangement or doing something that isn't just a code input. But in this case... it's better to keep the puzzles more like, these are code inputs,
yeah, like
everything else is murder.
For example, in an escape room, you might see that in that locker there were 3 clothes hangers and something might secretly open up if we put clothes on the empty coat hanger. It didn't feel like there was a risk of ambiguity about why we were looking at these clothes.
Yeah, we were doing
and what significance they
so it worked
had.
well.
Yeah, I tried to keep everything like within the realm of like of what would be reasonably possible if this was just an actual room that you worked
Also
into
true.
and not something that was configured to be a puzzle.
Mm.
I tried to make it organic.
Yeah, no, it feels really good. Look, I don't think there is a problem with too much information overload for this. Like, I understand you. Like, I can acknowledge that there is a lot of information. Right?
Yeah,
It's a murder mystery sort of thing.
I've definitely been there when describing a room, and the objects that people happen to interact with are really information heavy all at once. And I think maybe you're a bit more aware of it than the players are.
But like, there is a lot of information.
And yet I felt quite fine about it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I was worried when we got to the chair, and chair 8 had several things that I could make notes about.
It
but
did
then
feel
the
a
rest
little like we
felt
were
okay.
stacking in. It was like, okay, I've got my chair section. Oh, and then it's got a bag section. Oh no, those bags have sections underneath them as well. Okay, so
yeah,
there is
I was
definitely a lot.
worried it was going to feel like that. But as soon as we
But it was
passed
fine.
on to chair 7, I felt okay about it again. Like
Yeah.
the image was clear and not that cluttered in my head.
Although I will pose the question, right? I don't think it was an issue for this room, as I'm saying.
Mhm.
If you wanted to solve it, if you wanted to say, okay, let's try and
if you wanted to
drip
declutter
the information
things.
a little bit, let's declutter. Let's try and not have you get so much straight away. What do you reckon? Can we
I have no idea.
brainstorm any ways that you might do that in the context of this room?
Did you
Just a
notice
fun-
anything,
fun
Lexi, as you were
example.
going?
I mean, the way that I thought about it would be to remove the coat rack entirely, almost, and just kind of have like a more clear, instant picture of who the passengers were. So you still have to do a little bit of legroom, but I think that does also kind of remove that kind of lateral thinking puzzle of just trying to create a profile of each passenger rather than having to solve, ciphers or things like that. I kind of wanted both types
Yeah,
of
it would
puzzles.
definitely be a sacrifice
Mm.
to get rid of that in the name of what's Maria Kondo call it? Decluttering.
Yeah.
That's not a Maria
what she said,
Kondo
yeah.
word specifically, but
she just says, just declutter.
yeah, decluttering was what I was after.
I wonder if there's also a way, like even if you don't remove stuff, like if you wanted to gate things, like you could almost have there's like a staff locker and people lockers. Maybe you find the keys at a similar time, so you don't have them available at the start, and later on you get access to the coats, and then that gives you more information about those people and how to identify them. So you push back the identification.
It's not impossible,
by
but then
holding the coat's
sometimes
ransom.
But then sometimes you get a feeling of dread when you unlock something and there's too much more that you have just unlocked.
That's also true.
So yeah, I don't know. I felt pretty comfortable with this, and maybe there is a nice way of streamlining further, but as it is, looking at my page, I got this all on one page.
Fair, I didn't, but I am not used to these to my new little notebook. It's half the size I'm used to. No, yeah, look, I don't think it needs
So
the fix.
I
It's just a bit of a
can't
fun
see anything
exercise.
immediately to pick at.
Yeah. Oh well, look, I had a lot of fun playing it. I think we did quite well.
It felt pretty good.
Thank you
What
so
did
much.
you What did you think? Just judging us.
Oh yeah, how'd we go? Compared to all your
Terrible.
play testers.
Absolutely incredible. Yeah, I think there was at one point that I was very worried because you were looking at the taps and trying to figure out if there was a code of the names one by one. I was like, oh no.
They were
that
such
was-
fun names. You should have made them more boring.
Yeah. And so I was kind of worried that you would go down a rabbit hole that didn't exist. I think that's sometimes the other problem of having too much information, that sometimes it feels appealing and you think, oh, there could be something there when there isn't.
Mm.
But no, definitely. I think you did incredibly well. And
I
this was
I
a
think
lot of
we're
fun
not.
to
I
run.
think we're not too terrible at examining something for a bit and then being able to say, okay, look, we might have enough information to do this, but
Yeah.
it won't be a problem if we set it aside for now because I'm not sure if we do.
Yeah. And I said before, like that's a thing that's
And not convincing ourselves that our
There
own
must be
red herring
something,
is
exactly.
definitely correct.
Yeah, I think we're good at, and the other thing that I think is a great skill for people who want to be good at escape rooms or good at these puzzles to do is being able to look at something and see when it's actually a puzzle. To be able to look at it and be like, okay, hold on a second.
that can be
is it just
hard.
first initials? Is it first last? Yeah, no,
Just
try it
give
out. Nah, that's not really
Cursory
anything.
glance. If
We'll
you're
sort
not
of move
finding
on,
anything, maybe
you know.
it's okay to ignore. But yeah, it's so easy for someone to look at these and say, oh, yep, something about them being empty. Let's look at the first and last initials then, like it's a cryptic crossword. And then even if you ignore it and come back to it later, still thinking that that's really important because you
Yeah.
just got it into your head
Coming
that
back
it
and be
was
like,
something.
well, we did know that these were cryptic crossword
Yeah.
clues. Like we knew it was about first. And you're like, no, you didn't.
And that's
you made
what
that up.
I think we're pretty good at. I
Yeah.
think we're good at coming up with silly ideas because you never
And
know.
not- and not catching
and then
ourselves.
ignoring them when they're clearly wrong.
We don't get caught in the prison of our own minds. Wonderful. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on and running
Thank you so much.
the episode for us. It was lovely. It was very enjoyable.
It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It was, and thank you, Danny, for playing a room with me.
Likewise.
I was
Good stab
we
solving.
did very well. And thank you, everybody at home, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to help support the show, you can always, well, first of all, tell people about it. Leave reviews, jump online to various forums, tweet about it. You can't tweet
I think
anymore.
it's Fora.
Sorry?
Fora, not forums, surely.
Oh, you're right. Go to various internet fora. And tell people, word of mouth, it's the best way to get people to listen to new shows. And you can also support us on Patreon. We don't run ads, we don't do anything else like that. This is how we kind of keep the show running and keep our own lights on and things like that. So if you want to help support the show, anybody at any level can appear as an NPC in one of Danny's rooms. And if your name is Rossi, you are also an NPC in this room. So you better pay us some money.
Patreon donor, Arena Rossi.
Yeah, you don't exist. I'm so sorry. But also there's bonus episodes for all of our $5 donors. You can hear playtests of rooms. You can hear us do 2-minute mysteries and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. You get early access to all the Solve This Murder arcs as they come out. Lots of fun audio bonuses for the $5 donors. There's a whole series of new monthly vlogs we're doing for $10 donors, including a current series we're doing.
We just started doing a series of reacts to escape rooms in pop culture, in sitcoms and cartoons and
so
things
there's
like
lots
that.
Of fun, silly
we're
stuff
having
happening.
fun.
Yeah, it is good. And there's trivia for $20 donors, and you can join in on playtests as a $50 donor. A whole bunch of fun stuff. So it's a great way to keep the show going, and support us and support the rest of the community who gets free shows because some people are paying the money to support everybody else. You can feel like a cool benefactor to everybody else in the world. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, everybody, for coming on. And thank you, Lexi, for running the room. Thank you, Danny.
you.
It's all wonderful. All right, bye, everybody.